As cleaning up operations continue here at the site of the stricken vessel, the MV Ultra Galaxy, which ran aground near Lutzville on the Cape West Coast, salvers are also busy assessing the extent of the damage and also exactly how much fuel the vessel is still carrying. I'm joined now by the General Manager of Salvage, the General Manager for South Africa, Richard Robertson. Richard, good afternoon to you. So behind us, of course, we see that, we see the stricken vessel. We also see hundreds of community members involved with the cleaning up of the shore. Can you tell us what has been the progress so far since you've received the call for assistance? What has happened thus far?
Sure thing. So firstly, it's extremely unfortunate that this vessel has floundered on our coastline, and I can assure you that any seafarer, owner, underwriter or authority definitely doesn't like having a vessel like this on our shoreline. That said, it's an amazing effort that everyone has put together to clean up what has actually happened here, and it's also working on a common goal that to minimize the impact this vessel has had on our coastline. For us as Salvage, our objective is to prevent any of this oil landing up on the beach, and that's what we're actually doing at the moment. So we had an original plan that we brought a platform supply vessel coming in here, which you can see in the background, and that had all a bunch of oil removal equipment, heating equipment, because the consistency of this oil that's on board the vessel, before you can pump it off, you have to heat it up. And that's what we brought in with this vessel, with a whole bunch of specified equipment, both that we had locally and also internationally that we flew in. But subsequent the bad weather that came over the weekend, unfortunately, we haven't been able to start on that operation, and our team at the moment is busy assessing what they can and seeing what oil is still left on the vessel and how we can actually remove that oil from the vessel.
So I understand that you've managed to, by helicopter, remove some 8 tons of fuel, of oil already, but that there could still be well over 100 tons on board, I suppose, and that is the concern that you're sitting with now, because you've also mentioned just now that you haven't had the most pleasant weather conditions to work in.
That is true. So we are very weather bound at the moment. This time of the year, you have basically a 5% workability of the entire month. This is probably our best day that we've had in the past 10 days, and as you can see, it is not the calmest of conditions. So we're very weather bound, and what the guys are doing now is actually trying to locate if there is any oil and how much oil is left. The next thing from there is to see, is that oil accessible? And if it is accessible, how we get it out of the vessel and in a safe manner, and then be able to not let it end up on the beach.
Estimate at this stage, how much are we looking at if there is oil on board? What are you looking at this point?
So we have to take in what was declared when she ran aground and how much has been cleaned up. So according to the statistics of the cleanup crew, they're saying they have about 200 tons they've actually cleaned up. So there's basically 100 tons that's unaccounted for, and we need to find out where it is, whether it is still coming up on the beach, if it's maybe a misdeclaration of what they've actually cleaned up, and that's what we're hoping to find out now.
I've seen your helicopter quite active here today. Explain to us the use of the helicopter in terms of staff personnel actually on board.
Yeah. So the helicopter is an integral part of this entire salvage operation. Given its location, it's very hard to get people on board with a rubber duck. So we have to use a helicopter to get the people on board. And unfortunately, at this time of the year, we don't have a helicopter in South Africa that has got an active winch. So people had to improvise a bit, and there's a safe method which is called the underslung method with the double slinging, and that's how people are getting on board. There are 2 people that get underslung and they get put on board. That's how we get people on board, and that's how we're also getting our equipment on board.
Richard, I understand that there's a sort of two-prong if you will, 2 prongs to this operation. Of course, the first being the assessments and also removing the oil and the fuel. The second would ultimately be wreckage removal. What are we looking at in terms of timeframes? Can we gauge that at this point?
Yes, so as you mentioned, the priority at the moment is the oil removal. So from the fuel removal, we go into a stabilizing of the vessel or the wreck, then caretaking, and then into a wreck removal when conditions allow. So that timeline is all dependent on the weather. So like I said, oil removal, and if we have good weather and we know where the oil is and it's accessible, then that's definitely shortens the space of time that we have to actually to get to remove the oil. But if the weather plays a big role and we can't get on board and we don't have access to that oil, then we have to look at alternative means of how we get that oil out to ensure it just doesn't, not under our terms, comes out of the vessel. Yeah.
What is the area that has been affected so far in terms of the oil spillage? I see quite a bit of operations here on this stretch of coast or on the beach area. How big is the area affected?
At the moment, the only cleanup area they have it extends from directly in front of the vessel to about 500 to 800 meters down the beach. That is the only area that's been affected, which is, as I mentioned, the weather's a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing for all the oil, because when it comes out of the vessel, it gets washed directly onto the beach. And they've been very lucky enough with this amazing team from Spilltech that they have 200 people on the beach, and as anything washes up into the beach, they manage to clean it up.
Richard, thank you very much for your time. Of course, Richard Robertson, and we were just chatting just now about you actually being involved in another shipwreck off the Cape Coast at Blouberg a few years ago, the City one. That took quite a while to finalise. Can you see the situation being similar?
Yes, the Silly one was an extremely unique situation or salvage operation. With this salvage operation, the owners are very reputable, the underwriters are here very actively partaking, and I'm really positive, and including with SAMHSA's support, that once the oil removal situation has been taken care of, a wreck removal will follow into another stage of the salvage operation, and it will be removed from this coastline, and that's been very clear by SAMHSA. That's what they want, and that will happen.
Richard, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Of course, Richard Robertson from the Salvage Smith Salvage. Of course, behind me you'll see the wreck of the MV Ultra Galaxy. Of course, this is the site where the vessel ran aground, and where currently operations to clean up the affected beach area is underway. We understand that almost 200 members of the local communities are involved with the cleanup operation, and the Salvage, of course, telling us that they do expect to keep a close eye on weather conditions, because this operation indeed dependent largely on weather conditions to ultimately remove could be up to 100 tons of fuel from this vessel still, and then following which the operations to remove the wreck will get underway.